One big loss for our Michigan State Spartans in the transfer portal, but hey, some big-name visitors also arriving on campus soon. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week during this busy portal cycle. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below if there's anyone that you have your eye on as far as visits go this week. And if you don't know any names, well, yeah, sure, we're going to get to a few names here in this first segment. In segments 2 and 3, we will be joined by Glasser of Spartans Illustrated, kind of just to put an end to the chapter that was the 2024 season. But let's just get into the big news that happened on Tuesday. And, oh no, say it ain't so, Charles Brantley. Is this one really goodbye? For the third time in the last 4 portal cycles, yes, Charles Brantley, he is in the portal, the place that he has called home a few times. But hey, after each time, he's called Michigan State his home in the end. And I don't think it's going to happen this time. Hopefully I'm wrong, because look, let's just get down to it right now. That's a sizable loss. I think that's actually, not to throw complete shade and dirt at the other names that we've read off, but this is the one that we've had so far out of the 14 names that have entered the portal that probably takes you aback the most. Isaiah Johnson's another good one. Jalen Thompson's tough to see him go, but look, Charles Brantley, he was your highest graded defensive player on the team this year, according to Pro Football Focus. All right, we all saw the great improvement he had from last year or even the year before that, really who he was up until this season. And you're also getting thin-ish at that, thin-ish, not finish, thin-ish at that position. Ed Woods, okay, well, he's going to be gone. Jalen Thompson, he's already in the portal. You want to throw in younger, inexperienced guys like Phillip Davis or Brandon Lewis too? Sure, why not? This would make it 5 corners that are leaving from last year's team. And really, let's just talk about the human aspect of it too really quick. In a year with not a lot of things to smile about, Chuck Brantley and his growth in what he did on the field this season was one of the better stories that we had in East Lansing. And of course, you want to go back a few years, his legendary, iconic moment against Michigan, picking off Cade McNamara to seal what I still think, is the greatest Paul Bunyan game ever played. Well, yeah, he's always going to live in Michigan State lore. Now, why not like the overzealous, maybe just, oh my God, the world is ending reaction? Because just like I said, he was the highest graded player on Pro Football Focus. Even if you don't trust their numbers, you can just trust your own eyeballs. The kid balled out this year. He had a lot of great moments. So why am I not punching up the drywall or, damn near tears right now? Is because, well, maybe we saw this coming, right? We ended yesterday's show of saying, you know what? We're still waiting for a few names that we've heard about trickling out. And well, yeah, this was the biggest one that I had here. Because, well, he's a frequent flyer of the portal. We already, hammered that point home. This is the third time in the last 4 cycles he has entered the portal. Now, this time, I'd be really, really shocked if he does come back, because point number 2, why we saw this coming, when Demetrius Martin, Coach Meat, he goes to UCLA. Well, we said it on that show that, well, I would keep your eye on Chuck Brantley here, because he just had his best season under Coach Meat. And this is also a kid that, guys, he's been trying to kind of sort of leave here. I don't know. This also goes to the conversation we had yesterday, and I'll be shorter on it right now. But I would encourage a player, if you don't know where you stand in a program, to go out, enter the portal, see what you're at least worth. And I think that's what Brantley did the first, maybe the second time, came back, really understood where he stood as far as, numbers go, if it was an NIL thing, or just where he stands in a certain program. But a third time, especially, okay, well, your positional coach just left. I'm not reporting that he's going to go to UCLA. I would just maybe point to that direction. And also, this is uncomfortable to call a kid out for this, because it's largely out of his control, I guess you could say. And certainly he didn't mean to get hurt all the time. But sometimes availability is a really good ability to have. He played 9 games this year, just 3 last year, so durability's always been an issue, but let's not get it twisted. Like, I would still rather have a Charles Brantley than not have one. So there you have it. Charles, he's in there. If he wants to come back, I'd be a little surprised, but it certainly wouldn't be the first or second time that he has done that. Now, could the answer be on campus very shortly here for Michigan State? Brice Pollock, 6'1", 190-pound cornerback from Mississippi State. Now, just like I said, played mostly corner, played a little bit of box safety for the Bulldogs down there. But hey, just like Chuck Brantley, how he was highly rated on a, bowl gameless team this year. Same with Brice Pollock. Okay, he was the second highest graded defender for Mississippi State, the number 2 ranked corner on the transfer portal market, according to 24/7 Sports. Now he's also the 10th highest graded corner in the whole SEC. And, this isn't his only visit to an in-state program. He actually did just get off of a Michigan visit, I believe on Tuesday is when he left that campus. So, needless to say, when you're rated that high, the number 2 corner transfer, you graded out that high amongst your SEC co-peer, your peers, you're going to get a lot of attention here. Michigan State, okay, that's a good start just to get a visit out of him. Immediate playing time, not going to be a question. Let's see if they can seal the deal on this one. Also, another corner visiting very near in the future. This according to Spartans Illustrated, by the way. Jaleel Hurley visiting this weekend. He played 3 games for Alabama, former top 100 kid from the 2023 class. So if you're one of those people out there that hear that, think that there's some untapped potential there, well, Jaleel Hurley, come on down. Now, Luke Baklenko. Right now, according to Greg Biggins of 24/7 Sports, he's on Michigan State's campus right now. Little Tuesday, Wednesday visit for him. Now, this is an offensive lineman. He started 20 games at right tackle for Stanford over the last 2 years. Last year, allowed 21 pressures on the quarterback. That's not like elite. That's not great, but it's still certainly markedly better than what we just had here in East Lansing last season. And 5 of those pressures, I'm just going to go throw the guy a bone right now, already start coming to his defense. 5 of those pressures were against SMU. And believe it or not, I don't know how much Mustang football you guys have watched or read up on this year. They have a dynamic pass rush. They did not make the college football playoff by accident. So, yeah, a quarter of the pressures he gave up against a really good Mustang team. So that would be a really solid pickup for Michigan State. So just like I said, guys, he's at Michigan State leaving Wednesday and then reportedly going to Oklahoma over the weekend. And it's also been reported on that other unnamed Big Ten and SEC schools have been in contact. 2 more to get you out the door here before we are joined by Chase Glasser. Omari Kelly, a wide receiver out of Middle Tennessee State. Now, he caught 53 passes last year, 969 yards for the Raiders, or the Blue Raiders down there, excuse me. Louisville also going to get a visit from him. Cal, Washington, Kansas, Memphis, North Carolina are also trying to get a visit from Mr. Kelly too. 6 foot, 190-pound receiver. And guys, if you haven't been paying attention, it's looking like Nick Marsh is trending to be coming back. We talked about that not too long ago. Of course, nothing's ever official in the world of NIL until he takes the field week 1 next year. But nevertheless, let's say Nick Marsh is back next year. That's your only guy that's recorded a stat in the wide receiver room coming back to Michigan State. So you are going to need some wide receivers. Now, this isn't a receiver, but this is still a position of need here. Because what isn't a position of need this offseason? Eli Sanders, running back out of New Mexico. Now, he's a former 4-star running back. He signed with Iowa State, but then, went to New Mexico where he rushed for 1,063 yards and 9 touchdowns out there for the Lobos. Guys, excuse me. He's already been to Michigan State on Monday. He will be visiting Arizona Wednesday and Thursday. Oklahoma State, Arkansas, Virginia Tech, Stanford, and Memphis are also trying to get a visit from him too. That is according to the fine folks over at Rivals. So there you have it. Just a few names out there. There's one wish list person, actually. I'm not reporting this as a visit, but DT Sheffield did get offered Okay, now this is just a stunning receiver from North Texas. Friend of the program, Maxwell Klitsky. He's already claimed to be the captain of the DT Sheffield hype train to get him here to East Lansing. But dynamic receiver for North Texas. I believe he put up like something. Oh, God, I just X'd off the page. It was 11 touchdowns, north of 900 yards. This kid is a dynamic player. Again, no visit yet. But if you just want to have extra names to throw on your wish list for Michigan State, especially at a position of need, wide receiver DT Sheffield. I don't know if we have the power to do anything to sway him here, but let's just all tweet at him. That's what responsible adults do, right? They just tweet at college kids they want to join their football team. So there's the portal updates, guys. We're going to talk about this 2024 season that feels like it wrapped up a very, very long time ago, but first need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel is the sole reason I was watching Monday Night Football. Bengals, Cowboys. Who could possibly care about that game? Well, me, because I made a same-game parlay that came close to hitting, so at least it's making some bad NFL games enjoyable, too. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, guys, you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, really quick here before getting to Chase Glasser, solid conversation for the first 15, 16-ish minutes. The connection cut out near the end, so if it seems like there's just an abrupt halt to that conversation, that's why. I thought it still ended on a good way to stop. He did want to go on and say things about, Brendan Parachek, how he thinks a little highly of him, how he could find some form maybe in another year here, but that's why it's going to be a hard stop ending there. But all right, guys. Let's go talk to our guy, Chase Glasser. Folks, if you thought that we were done using Chase Glasser's brain, his time is insight, well, you are sorely mistaken. That's right, it is Mr. Glasser here of Spartans Illustrated. And Chase, I gave you a topic that we were going to start with, but curveball time, because you know what? As I'm sitting here, we're talking about the portal already. We just talked about signing day. It is crazy that those two things happen so quickly after the season. It really feels like Spartans, Scarlet Knights took place roughly about a month and a half ago. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's how I'm feeling. It's a blessing and a curse. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about the final season. And here's the question I got for you, because even as distant as the finale of that season seems, let's talk about it. I just told you right before we started recording, I wanted to do final thoughts. We're not really done talking about the season even after today, but not so final thoughts. Chase, what word would you use to describe the season for Michigan State football? Now, going back, the post-game show, I was pretty mean. I was pretty rude. I said it was a failure, and look, that doesn't mean the whole Jonathan Smith era will be a failure. I just think that this little battle and hopefully a long war, it didn't go the way Michigan State wanted to. Are you going to use a mean word like that? Do you have anything different? What one word would you put on the 2024 season? That's what we're throwing you on the spot with. And you just told me you woke up at 3:30 in the morning to catch a flight. I'm getting you it's close to zero brain power. Very, very exhausted.
How do we? Well, I think they say the opposite of hate is, or of love isn't hate, right? It's apathy. And I feel like when you talk to people in the fan base, you look at the kind of broader Michigan State zeitgeist, the message boards, what have you. What about, how do we feel about pallid as the adjective?
Oh, that's a big word. I like
feel
that.
About
that. I'm in. I haven't used that word in about 8 years.
I'm not going to lie. We got on here before the Rutgers game and we talked about how, you want to see him win, but 5-7, it's about what we had predicted. Just the tenor of the Rutgers game. And I mean, you go out and you have a good first drive and then that's it. And then it's just like you're getting diced. I mean, I understand that there's injuries, I especially in the back end.
Of course.
And I get it. It's not I don't want to go totally just fan brain. It's they don't care. I think they do. I think you see Childs' comments and clearly he cares. But you also see Charles's comments and you take it in the context of everything else, and you're just kind of like, the vibes aren't great.
Yeah.
Now I do think there's good things in there, and there's things that we can take away, and we can talk about that. But I am more concerned than I was 10, 14 days ago. And that's not really fair because it's the same team that we've seen since, I don't know, the 45 seconds left in the first half of the Michigan game. You know, like it kind of seems like you've been up and down. You've got this young quarterback. You come out of a bye. You really put it on an Iowa team that's not bad, and then you've got it rolling. And then it just seemed like it kind of that it just it's just like I really real good insight here, right? But it just it does seem like it kind of that was you can draw a line of demarcation. Now I can't, causation is not. Their correlation is not causation, right? But it just, you didn't finish strong, and I really expected this team to play its best ball as the season went on, and I really thought November stacked up pretty well for them. Now Illinois, better than we thought. Indiana, much better than we thought.
Yeah.
Rutgers is not bad. They're competent, which
I guess, yeah.
But I mean,
right.
I still think, it's a bitter pill to swallow that, and I understand. Rutgers, really the Indiana, I think is like that's one we're going into the season. You think they're not going to be very good, and they're turned out to be really good. Illinois, but I mean, Illinois is another one where you get it to 21-17 mid third quarter, and then that's just kind of it. Right. And it's just
roll credits. It's,
and I do think, I think somewhere in our psyche, we want to, because we care about this, so deeply. Right. And we follow it, and it means something to us. And it's like, well, do they care? Is there the passion that I have? And I understand the desire to put it on that. And I think sometimes that is the case. I'm not saying that necessarily about this team, but I keep going back to, where are your NFL players on this team?
Yeah. 404 error not found.
Sure.
Marsh.
And then then you get to, okay, where's your depth? Well, you don't have any. So I really go back and forth, but I think when you look at what college football is, more than ever, it just feels like an institutional arms race. And now I don't think Michigan State is necessarily ill-positioned. I mean, you've got, I know that there's a lot of ink spilled on, different venues of communication about Haller and the NIL and everything. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. What I do know is that the House settlement is going to kick in, and Michigan State's going to get a $20 million slush fund. Yeah. And I think that raises your floor. Now, everybody else gets that too. But I mean, Michigan State is a worldwide brand. Consistently, you look at Michigan State, they're top 25 in revenue. There's a great campus. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. But I do think, this recruiting class, there's some good pieces there. But I mean, it's still not really I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and say it's a high-end recruiting class. It's not. Now you're going to need a big portal haul here to turn things around. And I know that they're targeting 4 offensive linemen, and they're going to really try to beef up the defensive backfield and just, really try to overhaul all the positions. And I think that's good. And I think that's necessary, and
have to
need bodies.
Right.
Rebuilds stink, and the margin for error has never been smaller. So I don't envy the position that they're in. But to get back to your question about the word to describe the season, I just kind of feel right? And I didn't think I'd feel that way. I thought that it would be frustrating because you've got a young quarterback who's going to lose you some games, but I thought there was going to be some great moments. And, it just isn't really quite what I thought. And it just kind of feels a little bit lifeless. And that's not what you want. You want to have, whether it's hate or passion, you want to have some sort of emotion around the program. You don't want to feel lifeless. You know, you don't want to have that feeling. And I don't think the players feel that way. I don't think the coaches feel that way. And, but it just, the way that Rutgers game ended, it's not fair, but it does really leave me with a bad taste. And, I didn't really expect that to be the case. I didn't expect you to get blown out at home. I didn't see that coming. I really didn't.
With Rutgers having close to nothing to play for, they already got their bowl bid secured. We got some comments on the show too. It's like, well, it seems to really feel like this team is just kind of tapped out. I was like, well, unfortunately, I think that this is just who they are. But then you hear the Childs comments after the game. He doesn't name anyone specifically, but he's like, I really questioned some guy's effort in the second half. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's like, okay, maybe this is all a cocktail of injuries, of course. We cried and moaned about that enough. Yep. Just the talent, just not there. And then also, there is a little tinge of, well, maybe some guys weren't fully bought in, especially at the end of the season. So with all that said, look, I don't like going bowlless 3 years in a row, but in a weird way, it's like maybe this team just needed to crawl to an off season by any means necessary and just kind of just get the ball rolling on to the next year. So Chase, with that said, I've asked you about 45,000 questions this year in your time here. Let me possibly ask the toughest one that I've had yet. Anything that you like from Michigan State going into the offseason here? And look, obviously, a lot of these position groups are going to look substantially different next year than they will. I mean, just to name a few, running back, you lost your top two in Nathan Carter, Cameron Lynch-Adams. Your receivers, the only one that's returning that recorded a stat last year, right now, a lot of things can change, is Nick Marsh for all intents and purposes. But, like, I guess anything schematically you've seen from the coordinators, anything you saw from Smith, anything you saw possibly that gives you like just a little twinkle of hope going into the offseason where a lot of things right now are unknown.
Yeah.
You want to say if you want to say no, we could just end the show right here. I can stop this recording right now. That's not an issue.
No, I mean, there's stuff, right? I mean, you look at Childs and I mean, there was discourse and obviously there's people on both sides, but like,
this will upset some people. This will upset some people.
Well, but I mean, you look at like mid-October and there was discourse over like, the amount of interceptions that Childs has thrown is unacceptable, and he needs to be benched to send a message.
Bingo. Yeah.
And he threw 8 picks in his first 4 games, I think.
Not great.
And then he threw 4 in his last 8. Like,
I would say that's improvement. I would. Not a lot of people would.
Now, I mean, there was a couple notable lost fumbles. There was the one against Michigan. There was the one against Oregon. Not great, but also, I mean, I think there's also been the narrative a little bit, in certain places. And I'm not saying nobody's wrong here. Like, I'm not saying that anybody's wrong. I don't think there really are wrong opinions in this case where it's like, if you go out and you're throwing 2 picks and fumbling once a game, if you want to say a quarterback should be benched, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Okay. Right? Like, so there's that. But then, you hear, the coaches just shut Childs down and they didn't let him do anything. The second half of the season, I've said, and this is just like, I poke around on our message boards to kind of see what people are thinking, and it informs commentary, right? And I've seen both those things, and I don't think either one of them are wrong, to be clear. But I go back to the fumble that Childs had at the end of the first half against Michigan.
Okay,
like you've dominated that half. Michigan gets a series of like kind of weird events where you get like a 3rd and long conversion, and then you get Peyton O'Leary putting Brantley in the dirt for like 20 yards, and then you get everybody loses track of Loveland. Michigan State could have. Well, that's a whole.
No, act like I never said anything right there. Yeah. I'm sorry.
But because how? But at Michigan ran a play action like for like the 3rd time all year, right? And it's like why you don't do that. Why they don't do that more? That's also a different question, and I think the person responsible for that's no longer employed. But Michigan State could have knelt it out, gone into half, and said, okay, we're going to regroup. We're going to force a 3-and-out to start the second half, and we're just going to keep on chugging. We can run the ball. It's fine. They had Childs on kind of a half roll. They're looking to take a shot to get into field goal range. The worst case scenario happened that he fumbled, and you fumble, Michigan gets a field goal. They're going into half with the lead. But I mean, they still trusted him and they went for it big time in a moment where, it wound up hurting them, but they still went for it. Right. And I think, again, at the end of towards the end of the third quarter, they did a surprise onside kick. Now, I don't think you needed it, but they're still taking chances. Like, again, about the worst case scenario happened and you gave a team a short field. Now, it wound up not mattering, but it's they're still being aggressive. So I don't think you can have a conversation about the future of the team and bright spots without talking about both Marsh and Childs. And Childs, like we talked about, the disparity in interceptions and turnovers in a very positive way. That's great. Now, I think with your other bright spot, it's Nick Marsh. And he was a top 5 freshman receiver in the country, extremely productive. But I do think he hit a little bit of a wall. I think the team hit a little bit of a wall.
Fair. Yeah.
In the latter, if you look at his stat line in the latter half of the year, it's clear coming out of when teams are coming out of their bye week and they're looking at Michigan State, okay, we got to shut down Marsh. You could see that, I don't think it's just that Michigan State wasn't trying to go at him. I think of the Purdue game where it was third down after third down, the ball's in Childs' hands. His first read is Marsh, and there's a couple times he tried to force it to him, right? And it didn't always work, but he really looks like he's going to be a player. And I think another year of getting bigger, faster, stronger. It does not sound, I'm sure teams are making runs at him, but I have heard nothing to suggest that he won't be in the green and white in the fall, which would, you've got a core there. I also think just the fact that from a scheme perspective, I don't think the offense developed a ton. Now, why am I saying that when we're talking about positives? I think that there were some personnel situations that they didn't expect that really hamstrung them, and they were still able to be competitive for large swaths of the Illinois game. I think they probably should have won the Michigan game. And then Purdue, they were able to win. The first half looked really good. You've got a team without a lot of depth. They're young. They're inconsistent. They're kind of figuring it out. I think look at what the offense was able to produce with Jack Velling coming in my opinion, well under expectations.
Safe to say. Yeah.
I don't think that's being unfair.
No, it's not.
I don't think that is unfair. Between Jarek Broussard and Jack Velling, all Pac-12 may not mean what it did, 20 years ago, right? So you look at that, and then it's okay. There was still the Iowa game, being able to run the ball the way that they were. That was impressive. And something that I wanted to talk about too, Matt, this came to mind, and just all of the discourse about the playoff and Ryan Day and, he ran the ball against Michigan to prove he was tough. Was there an element of that? Sure. But what Michigan did that entire game is they showed Ohio State a 5-man box and said, we are going to put everybody in the parking lot. We're going to shade safeties. We're going to mix coverages. You are not going to beat us throwing the ball unless you get us in tempo, which Ohio State did once and it worked. I think it's a credit. Like, look at how other teams play you. And I think that that's very informative about what your team is. Michigan played Michigan State in kind of their Ohio State defense, where we are not letting the top get taken off our defense. We're going to give you a 5-man box. And if you look at the kind of narrative coming out of the Ohio State game, it's like, well, Ohio State was foolish to even attempt to run against Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant because that's a foolish errand. Well, Michigan State didn't really have a problem with it. And you give any offensive coordinator in high school and college, the NFL, a 5-man box, they're going to run the ball because football is a numbers game. That's what you do. And Michigan State did it really well. And if you look at how they played against those guys, it wasn't always perfect. There was a 3rd and 1 that got blown up. But it's like, watching the Michigan-Ohio State game, it's like, I know Ohio State's offensive line is banged up, but Michigan State's offensive line put together a much better performance in pass pro and in at least this. I don't know the advanced stats. I haven't really cared to look them up, but just the eye test. It's like they were moving people, they were blocking people up, and they were moving the ball. If Ohio State had the performance on the ground that Michigan State did against Michigan, Ohio State would have won that game. And I know it's kind of a stupid example, but it's illustrative of, I think when you have a season that's 5-7, you have to look for bright spots within individual games, even if the individual game didn't come out as a win. So I think there's that.
Huge thanks to Chase, as always, just doing fantastic work over there at Spartans Illustrated. Same with the whole crew over there. They've got you covered this transfer portal season, just like we do here, right here on Locked on Spartans. Should or when anything breaks, you already know we're going to be here. Locked on Spartans. We do this 5 days a week. We got some basketball talk coming tomorrow, and also looking to have Graham Couch on to end this week. That's right. Only saving the best to end the week. Until then, guys, hey, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go Green.